You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And this is the second week, the middle week, of our three-parter, which is a novella from my book Parallax, and it is titled The Last Speaker. And we did the first part last week, and we're going to do the third part and the conclusion next week. So, as I said last week, you can either take it installment by installment, as we're doing, or you can save them all up and hear them all at once, or you can get the book and read them all at once. It's up to you. It's a strange story, and I love it dearly. I'm very proud of it. It is dedicated with much respect and love and laughter and resonance to Indigenous peoples, of which I am not one, but the imagination is. And so I've tried very hard to do it without appropriation and with the greatest of respect. And I've been told by Indigenous sisters that that's how it comes across. I hope so. In any event, it's a good story. And I offer The Last Speaker to you. And so that we don't have to interrupt it, we'll take a short break right now, and then we'll be back with The Last Speaker, Part 2. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Here, then, is The Last Speaker, Part 2, from Parallax, published by Spinifex Press. Part 1, you may remember, ended with the words, "Perhaps I might teach you a phrase or two that will not harm you to speak." So it began. Each day the word worker came to sit, aching joints forgotten, on the floor of a tent in the middle of the great city. And the city receded before the story that came alive in the voice of the last speaker. Sometimes the rhythm and lilt of that voice so overcame Tyak that he forgot to listen for meaning, lost in the music itself. Through that music he roamed the massive stretches of the plains, climbed the snow-veiled mountain ranges and peered into hidden valleys, paddled down wide ranges to reach the great sea's mouth, signaling its tidal, "Ah, shh, ah, shh." He looked down as if riding a wild hawk, seeing below dots of villages where people were working and laughing, arguing and sleeping, making love, killing, dying. He saw forests where the trees swayed as they inhaled and exhaled wind through green lungs. Nothing has meaning but in its story, the last speaker sang softly. Words are born like essences from the local home place. You see? There are thousands, more than thousands of words for each thing, but always born from the unique home place. A river people will have many names for water, as will a coastal people. Yet both have only a few words for sand. But a desert people has hundreds of names for sand, for the storms of sand and grains of sand, for its temperature and type and how sand shifts and the shapes it takes when it settles in drifts and dunes. A mountain people, especially in the far northern regions, will have 1,000 names for snow. So it is with valley peoples, hill peoples, and with us, whom you call nomads. The word worker sat rapt, listening. Words also are nomads. They can move anywhere, like my people. If a caravan of nomads moving through desert people's regions rests with them a while, when the caravan moves on, it carries with them not only fine glass blown by the desert people from sand and fire, but also words for glass. Words go everywhere, but each is born from a specific home place. So today I will teach you a simple phrase, one you can pronounce in safety. Tiason aime isach kai. Tiason anamai isach? No. Tiason aime isach kai. Tiason aime isa kai. Good. Practice that. What does it mean? Practice the phrase. Do not worry about the meaning yet. The next day, the story resumed. Some of our clans carry many dozen times dozens of members. Others are small, though equally valued. Some have separate languages for female and male. Others have no distinctions or even words for female or male. My clan had no use for the future tense because we moved continually into the future, making it the present. But the past tense, such gradations. There was a moment or two ago. That was the recent past. There was a further past, a distant past, even a mythic past, where the story is so ancient it no longer needs a new truth or description to freshen it, because it has that deeper truth whose power sustains itself despite, or because of, so many lifetimes of repetition. And there is the unknowable past, the past of all origins, the telling of a story with no beginning or ending. But surely every story has an ending. The word worker was loath to interrupt the music, but curiosity drove him. I still chafe at waiting for the end, as I did when I was little, to learn what happens. But the ending happens throughout a story, Tyak. Think. One gazes at a picture. The image can be perceived in one moment, entirety and details, though the longer one looks, probably the more one sees. But a story exists in time, through and across time. One cannot perceive it in a moment. So why be impatient for some ending when all might seem clear? Think, Tyak. A piece of music, a song. It too exists in time, but does anyone imagine that the point of a song, its meaning, is simply to arrive at its end? Music's tale unfolds at each instant of playing, of listening. This also is the story of a living, Tyak. If too absorbed in a wait to make sense of everything, one forgets to be alive. Each hour, each tale. This is the way a child of my clan learned to glimpse the story and the how at the same moment, as if watching the individual bird and also the flock swarming. He peered at his guest. But now is a moment for another phrase. The word worker was startled by the change of course. Let the sounds into your inmost ear. They will draw you in to enter the words. You remember the first phrase? Tiason aime isach kai. Good. Here is another. Leton aina osach kwai. Letan aina osa kwai. Letan aya osa kwai. And what does that mean? Meaning. Practice the phrase. But how am I supposed to? The meaning will open to you in time as you enter the words. You want me to enter your story. You want to keep me in there. No, I want you to move about and in your own story. It was you who forced me to fix in one spot. What if I want to get out of my story? One can always find a way out. Choose another story, the story you think is you. Choose the story that brought one Sjarner to this moment. It's been years since I spun any. Very well. He realized he was nervous. He cleared his throat. When I was younger, I chose a certain path. It was a path that led not to what was necessary, but to what was possible. To choose otherwise seemed at the time a self-indulgent imposition of what I personally valued over what everyone else valued. What, after all, was the use of inventing stories when real life could be invented? Life without war, hunger, pain, disease, fear. What greater use for creativity than to transform it into power? I could not settle, for that was the way it felt, for creating stories and songs when a different reality needed to be created. At first, in fact for years, I told myself I could do both, one set of creations feeding the other. And so a Sjarner came to be a minister. No, that was later. It happened gradually. I barely noticed that It was wartime, a period so different from now, so terrible, that I can hardly count the... He drifted off, staring into his memories. Come back to me once, Sjarner. Return to now. Counting and measures also are different for wandering peoples, like space and time. The word worker rubbed his eyes. How can that be? We talk and talk, you and I, but sooner or later we return to this same spot and same questions. Yes, we sit and we talk as people have done and will do through what passes for history. But all the while different histories are making themselves around us. Geological history, planetary history, astronomy, on into the unknown. Also more small, more simply. This moment is right now happening with such different meaning for others. Somewhere people gather for a ceremony. Somewhere a woman rocks a restless child. Each in a space and time differently shared. Do you wish to know time as my people do? See why we understand it has no meaning? Convince my painful joints of that, the word worker smiled. But the last speaker only replied, They would ache indeed were you to feel yourself walk through millennia. Let me show you by the telling of it. I have given you a how story about my people's home, our words. This now will be a how story about time. This one content of a tale I will try to sing you. But remember, the content is not the story. So it continued, day after day, as the two men sat in the small tent, muscles at rest except for those needed to tell, and those needed to listen. It was words that guided them to hike the deepest canyon known, a climb through the ages. Far below them, igneous bedrock, coal-black schist, marbled by fingers of rose granite, towered down the earth's core, forming the base for 200-foot-high cliffs of sandstone, which in turn swept upward a 650-foot thrust of shale, topped by 700 feet of vermilion limestone ridges layered in ruffles, crowned by 800 feet of yet another sandstone swirling into laminations of still a different shale, and another limestone cresting that, and another, a vast splendor unfurling up the canyon walls. Here was a geological record etched by time's cartography, on dimensional scales too immense and at a tempo too patient to be grasped by the brain. Here was a chronicle of primordial mountain ranges shuddering up along fault lines only to erode into plains, later flooded by warm seas that would recede in drought to spread deserts in their wake, to be flooded again, desertified again, flooded again, an innumerable company of motes dancing through rhythms of identity, lava cooling to scoria, mud hardening to shale, dunes crisping to sandstone, legacies of extinct sea creatures bequeathed to limestone, tooth by shell by bone. Then, in the history and the yesterday of a mere 10 million years ago, the trickle of a river would begin to sculpt the emerging masterpiece. The two men progressed as if moving slowly, step by cautious step, word by perilous word, the younger deliberately holding back so that the older, laboring, could keep up. They climbed through seasons as well as eons, shimmers of late summer heat that gilded the riverbed below, crystallizing to cool, crisp air at higher reaches. They climbed through time-space, every 1,000 spans of elevation equaling a further journey northward. You glimpse the how we tell about time and space. The word worker sat speechless. You do see. Perhaps also you begin to see why there are only 5 or 6 stories in the world. The rest is in the telling. The last speaker studied his stunned guest. Tyak, he said, I have another phrase for you to practice. Etya jeheto aina jehet. The word worker gaped at him. Come, repeat it, please. Etya jeheto aina jehet. Etya jeheto aina jehet. Yes, good. Practice that along with the first 2. Then I will teach you a 4th phrase, a final phrase. The minister started as if from a trance. Why a final phrase? Because my stories are now done. That cannot be. You are a true storyteller, even in a second language. In your mother tongue you must be spellbinding. Come with me then. Learn to hear that. To roam about wildly I cannot. Then let me go, alone. Ah, thought Tyak, there it is. I may not, he said aloud. Who would it harm? I am one. You are many. Let me go free. You are free here. The last speaker glanced around the small tent, then turned a face tightened in pain to his guest. I will escape. You know this. I know you will try, though you have every comfort. But you understand that you are watched. There are guards. There is no comfort for me here, and where I go, no guards can find me. Come now, you are young, with your life before you. With such skill you could be famous and well followed. Besides, any attempt to kill yourself would render this story of your refusal meaningless. Yes, it would. But you could give it meaning by sharing it with the world, by not being so selfish. Selfish. Is that how you imagine me? I see you. I don't imagine you. Oh, yes, you imagine me. Myself, I am only a story fragment in a vanished tongue. The heavy-lidded eyes blinked slowly. Say to me the phrases, please. The phrases? Oh, Tiason aime isakai, letan aina osakwai, etia jeheto aina jehet. Annoyed, the word worker rattled them off, sing-song. The last speaker frowned. Why do you rush through them, Minister? Because I've learned the sounds by rote, but still have no idea what they mean. Nor will anyone else know what I mean when I say them. Is this your revenge? Only you in the whole world understand what I'm saying as I speak them? Otherwise, I'm alone with these words, horribly alone. It's like a punishment, a crushing weight to bear. He stopped, remembering that his host was a last speaker. Embarrassed, he struggled to his feet. The last speaker watched him in silence. In silence, the word worker left the tent. Whenever he returned from the tent to what he had previously called the real world, that world seemed drained of color, never more so than this evening. Later it occurred to him while in bed, staring at the gray ceiling, he must ask the last speaker why this was the case. The next morning he recalled thinking this, and though aware of the irony and trusting he would receive an honest reply, resolved to ask after all. As he tapped the small gong at the entrance to the tent, he was in fact looking forward to an answer that, whether profound or nonsensical, he didn't doubt would be true. He was also looking forward to reconciling, since they had parted coldly the day before. But no one came to admit him. He tapped the gong again. Nothing. Alarmed, he parted the tent flaps, entering to see the young man lying on a pallet in a corner of the tent. He moved to the last speaker's side, saw that the man was covered with sweat, and touched his forehead, to feel almost singed, so high was the fever. Behind the glittering eyes, urgency burned. The fourth phrase, he kept repeating. Odiara aime ne tielet. Odiara aime ne tielet. Say it after me. Odiara aime ne tielet. Now, say them all. Tiason aime isa kai, leton aina osa quei, itia jeheto aina jehet, odiara aime nehe tilet. Yes, the last speaker exhaled the words, barely audible. You must practice them daily until they let you in. Do not forget them. They will. Then he fell back onto his pallet and lost consciousness. For the next however many days, Tyak lost count. He summoned the finest doctors, bringing the most advanced remedies, to no avail. For the next however many days, Tyak never left the last speaker's side, bathing him with cool linen soaked in rose water, whispering to him again and again how life was the most precious of stories, how he must live to tell his tales. Yet the last speaker sank deeper into delirium. He lay in a half-coma, lips moving incessantly. The word worker leaned close, straining to hear. But these mumbled words were in the language he'd never learned, and the gates that had opened the path to that knowledge were now closing. In the tense, dim light, the word worker sat practicing the phrases he had been given, repeating his litany like prayers to a God who speaks a language unlearnable by its petitioners. There was nothing he could do to stop the inevitable. The last speaker was escaping him. Then, suddenly, the younger man opened his eyes. He fixed them on the minister. "Once, Yarner," he rasped. "Once, Yarner, I speak to you in Unifier." Tyak leaned nearer. "Yes," he said eagerly. "I'm here, my son. I never left. I'm here. The last speaker tried to form words through his dry, cracked lips. "The phrases," he whispered. "Tiason aime isach kai, liton aina asa quae, etia jeheto aina jehet, odera aime nehe tilet." They came out smoothly this time, like a lullaby. The last speaker sighed. "Well spoken. Odiara aime nehe tilet." Yes. He struggled to sit up. Waving off the useless, hovering doctors, Tyak braced himself so that the sick man could lean against him. He held him in his arms as the younger murmured through labored breathing. To him? It must be to him. It was in Unifier. "This was my story." A spasm shook his body. "I was designated the last speaker. I drew the lot." Tyak bent close and gazed into those dark eyes as if wordlessness could reveal whatever secret words could not. But as he watched, a light of sentience drained from the pupils that now stared flat at him. The body slumped in his arms. He closed the eyelids. Then he sat for hours, cradling his burden. His burden, his friend, his almost son. This wise, supremely gentle man he had thought naive. He had thought naive. This primitive, so civilized, he would not survive without his own voice. This wanderer whose last words were in an alien tongue. The word worker wept. But he was an old man, experienced in loss. He knew what must happen. So finally he roused himself. He gave instructions for disposal of the body. He lifted down the brass dagger hanging from the silk cord to cherish as a keepsake. And he left the tent for the last time. But morning tracked him. Mourning deepened as the days and weeks passed, though whether he mourned more for the man or the stories that died with him, Tyak couldn't tell. Obsessively now he practiced his phrases, terrified he'd forget them before learning. How, he had no idea what they meant. Still, they were all that remained of a man he now knew he had loved. He summoned former guardians of all known, now illegal languages to see if his phrases were recognizable in any dialects, but none were. Yet how could he be certain of this? The guardians, no matter how assured of their safety, were too fearful to speak anything but Unifier in his presence, so he was trapped in the powerlessness of his own power. He tried to break his fixation by immersing himself in work. But there, facing him, were painful reminders, translated uniform contents of what had once been a multitudinous variation of old tales. The content was not the story. He resigned from the ministry. He resigned from the High Council. He devoted himself to research, poring over volumes of dead languages. He could find his phrases nowhere. So he left the city. He journeyed to the previously nomadic regions through which waves of the great wandering clan nations had once swept. Now they were settled peoples. But even in the towns, something glimmered, quicksilver in their eyes, a wildness carefully knitted. In each place he stopped. He left a small tribute, a bird's feather, a flower petal, in memory of the last speaker and to honor the essences of the area. In each place he inquired about the particular clan to which the last speaker had belonged. No one could tell him anything, nor could he discover why. Then one night, trying to recall the dream that had wakened him, he instead remembered something else. He sat upright in bed. There were living members of that clan. The last speaker and his people regarded them as unalive, but there were those few who had neither found their stories nor been able to invent them, who had left to become sedentaries. He jumped out of bed, exultant. During the transition when the trust was phasing in unification, every person had to be registered by law. It shouldn't be difficult to find an exile who had relinquished the last speaker's language but still knew it, who could tell him what the phrases meant. Hurrying back to the city, he grinned to think how he still retained powerful connections. Indeed he did. So it took merely a day and a half before a slovenly, middle-aged woman was brought to see him. You've been listening to part 2 of The Last Speaker, the novella that appears in my book, Parallax, published by Spinifex Press. And be sure to tune in next week and hear the conclusion of The Last Speaker, part 3, and the ending. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.